As we've been reporting, Florida is the first state in the U.S. to have mosquito-borne cases of the Zika virus. The state attracts more than 100 million tourists every year, and now it's facing what might be one of its biggest financial challenges ever, keeping tourists around amid the threat of the Zika virus. CBS News travel editor Peter Greenberg joins me now from Washington. And Peter, if travelers cancel their vacation plans for Florida over fears about Zika, the state's billion-dollar travel industry could see a serious deficit. What kind of impact could the Zika threat have on tourism?
Well, if history is any indication, it won't be if, it'll be when. Go back to Puerto Rico with Zika. They had substantial cancellations, not just in terms of travelers on vacation, but meetings and conventions. Major League Baseball canceled, and then they lost a lot of business when those conventions and meetings canceled, and that's revenue they can't recoup. When you had the Gulf oil spill, a lot of people don't understand geography. They paint the geography with a rather broad brush. So even though it was in the southwestern part of the state in the Gulf, affecting all those Gulf coastal cities, Fort Lauderdale and Miami suffered because people thought the oil spill was there. Here's a situation, we have a small neighborhood in Miami, but for most people, they're going to think it's Orlando as well, and that's a big hit.
Peter, as you know, on Monday, JetBlue said that travelers to destinations affected by Zika, including Miami, can qualify for a refund or change their plans. Cruise ships leave port from Florida, and it's a major international hub. For people who don't want to cancel their vacations, is there anything they can do to protect themselves and help prevent the spread of the virus?
Well, there is trip cancellation and interruption insurance. People should buy that before they take a trip where they have a substantial investment in their trip. And most of the time that will cover those instances. But cruise ships themselves, the cruise lines themselves, have a terrible history of having a draconian refund policy. So if you don't have the insurance, you either take the trip or you're out the money.
Well, the virus is isolated, as you said, in the Miami-Dade region right now. But if it spreads to Orlando, the home of Disney World, what kind of impact could that have, especially on one of Florida's biggest revenue generators?
Well, Orlando last year in 2015 had a record year for revenue of people visiting that city. Of course, they were very concerned after the incident at the nightclub, and now this. The real problem is getting the word out of where Orlando actually is in relation to where the travel warning is talking about. The biggest problem, of course, are the travel warnings that foreign governments are telling their citizens about whether or not they should come to the United States. So this is just going to get bigger before it gets better, only because people need to get educated about the geography.
And speaking of geography, Peter, we know it's, of course, not just Florida, but this is having a ripple effect across the Caribbean. Tell us about that.
Well, remember, it wasn't just Puerto Rico. We're talking about 42,000 room cancellations in the Caribbean just in the wake of Zika. And there are 40 countries right now. If you actually look at the actual reports, there are 40 countries that are reporting incidents of it. Not that many travel warnings. This travel warning to Florida is unprecedented for the United States, and it's an indication of how serious it may be.
Peter, any good news for people in Florida especially?
Well, there's good news for people who are smart travelers. You know, you can protect yourself. There's something called DEET. There's something called, I know it's not a great fashion statement, but if you're going to an area where there's standing water or in a swamp area, and Florida certainly has that with the Everglades, you want to actually wear your socks over your pants, not under your pants, so that you have more coverage and protection. And bottom line is this, the incident levels are still low, and the smart travelers who do that protection are going to have a great time.
All right, Peter Greenberg in Washington for us. Peter, thank you.
You got it.